Long before America had a name, this land was a world of its own, cared for by countless Native American tribes. They were societies deeply connected to the earth, living in harmony with nature. They hunted, they farmed, and they respected the land that sustained them. They had no need for kings or castles, because their understanding of freedom was woven into the very fabric of their lives. Into the forests, rivers, and mountains they called home. Then, in the early 1600s, the horizon changed forever. Ships began to appear, carrying people from a distant world across the Atlantic. These weren't kings or conquerors in search of treasure. They were ordinary families, laborers, and artisans, people who were running from poverty, persecution, and a lack of opportunity. They weren't sailing for gold. They were sailing for a future. In 1620, one of these ships, the Mayflower, brought the pilgrims to the shores of what is now They landed at Plymouth, and what they found was not a paradise, but a brutal, unforgiving winter. The cold was relentless. Hunger became a constant companion. Disease swept through their small settlement, claiming nearly half of their number. Every single day was a battle for survival. Yet, even in the face of such despair, they held on. They refused to quit. Their salvation came from an unexpected source. The local Wampanoag tribe, led by figures like Massasoit and Squanto, showed them compassion. They taught these newcomers how to cultivate the unfamiliar land, how to plant corn, fish in the local rivers, and survive in this new world. That first successful harvest was more than just food. It was a symbol of hope and collaboration. They shared a feast, a moment of gratitude that we now remember as the first Thanksgiving. It was a brief, beautiful moment of two worlds coming together. Over the next century and a half, more ships arrived, and 13 distinct colonies began to take root along the East Coast. Forests were cleared, towns were built, and farms expanded. Life was hard, demanding constant labor, but it was filled with a sense of possibility. People worked for themselves, for their families, and they began to believe in the idea of opportunity, that hard work could lead to a better life. But thousands of miles away, across the vast ocean, a king and a parliament in Britain held power over their lives. The British Crown began to impose its will, viewing the colonies as a source of revenue. Taxes were raised without any consultation, taxes on tea, on paper, on everyday goods. Laws were passed that restricted trade and limited personal freedoms. The colonists had no representatives in Parliament, no voice in the government that ruled them, and they came to understand a fundamental truth. No voice means no freedom. A slow-burning anger began to simmer throughout the colonies. It started with pamphlets and secret meetings, with protests and boycotts. This simmering anger eventually hardened into unwavering courage. In the summer of 1776, in Philadelphia, a group of delegates from the 13 colonies made a decision that was both incredibly bold and dangerously true. They declared their independence from Great Britain. They drafted a document that would echo through history, a document that proclaimed a radical new idea, that all people are created equal, endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These weren't rewards to be earned or gifts from a king. They were rights inherent to every human being. This declaration was an act of war. The American Revolution was a long, grueling, and painful conflict. The Continental Army, a ragtag force of farmers and merchants, faced the most powerful military machine on the planet. The soldiers were often hungry, poorly clothed, and unpaid. Many lacked even basic supplies like shoes, leaving bloody footprints in the winter snow. The temptation to give up, to go home, was immense, but they fought on, united by a belief in something greater than their own fear. They were led by George Washington, a general who commanded not with the arrogance of a king, but with the resolve of a public servant. He shared his soldiers' hardships and inspired them to endure the impossible. Against all odds, this small, determined army, with crucial help from allies like France, defeated a global empire. A new nation was born, forged in sacrifice and dedicated to the ideal of liberty. However, the freedom they had won was tragically incomplete. While the founders spoke of liberty for all, the institution of slavery remained a deep, festering wound on the soul of the new nation. Millions of black Americans were held in bondage, denied their basic humanity, their rights, and their dignity. This profound injustice, this original sin, created a tension that America could not ignore. This tension finally erupted in 1861, leading to the Civil War. It was the nation's darkest hour. Brother fought against brother, neighbor against neighbor. Cities were laid to waste, and the land was soaked in blood. The very existence of the United States hung in the balance. In the midst of this catastrophe stood President Abraham Lincoln. He firmly believed that a nation divided against itself could not stand, that America could not endure half slave and half free. After 4 years of unimaginable bloodshed and terrible sacrifice, the Union was preserved, and slavery was abolished. Freedom, which had been so long delayed for so many, was finally, painfully, advanced. The nation began the slow and difficult process of healing and rebuilding. In the decades that followed, America began to transform. Railroads stitched the continent together, connecting east to west. Factories rose from the ground, their smokestacks painting the skylines of growing cities. And a new wave of people began to arrive. Immigrants from Ireland, Italy, China, Poland, and countless other nations sailed into harbors like Ellis Island. They came with different languages, different faiths, and different customs, but they all shared a common dream, a better life. They often arrived with nothing but the clothes on their backs and hands, full of hope, ready to work and build a future. But the path forward was never a straight line. The 20th century brought new and immense challenges. The Great Depression of the 1930s plunged the country into economic despair. Banks failed, jobs vanished, and hunger became a grim reality for millions. Families who had believed in the promise of hard work suddenly found themselves with nothing. Just as the nation was beginning to recover, the world was engulfed by World War II. America was once again called to fight. Millions of young men and women crossed oceans to confront tyranny and fascism, risking their lives, not just for their own country, but for the cause of freedom around the globe. When the war ended, America emerged as a global superpower, a leader on the world stage. Yet, even with this newfound power, the fight for justice at home was far from over. Segregation and racial discrimination were still a part of daily life for African Americans. In the 1950s and 60s, a powerful movement for civil rights rose up. Courageous voices demanded that America live up to its founding ideals. At the forefront of this movement was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who spoke of a dream of a nation where his children would one day be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. His non-violent message of love and justice resonated across the country and around the world, moving the nation forward and proving that hate could not win. Today, America is not a perfect nation. It never has been. It still struggles with division, inequality, and injustice. It is a country that is constantly arguing, constantly changing, and constantly learning from its mistakes. But through it all, it continues to move ahead. This is a country built on the sacrifices of soldiers, shaped by the courage of protesters, and driven by the belief of ordinary people. America is more than just a piece of land or a set of borders. It's an idea. It's a promise. It's the radical, audacious idea that you can start with nothing and become something. That your future is not defined by your birth, but by your ambition and your hard work. That idea is the beating heart of the American story. Thanks for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please like and subscribe for more.